Welcome to Xi Jinping Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: China cracks down on fentanyl, resumes drug control talks with U.S. China's air quality worsened this year for the first time in a decade. U.S. alarmism over Taiwan and mainland China is truly alarming. Prominent Chinese business analysts are starting to disappear from social media. BYD car investment affirms Hungary as China's EU bridgehead. China cracks down on fentanyl, resumes drug control talks with U.S. South China Morning Post. China has said it is gradually resuming narcotics control talks with the U.S. and has carried out campaigns against fentanyl production. Drug control agencies of the two countries had resumed regular contact, in keeping with an agreement reached between the U.S. and Chinese presidents last month, the Foreign Ministry in Beijing said on Friday. China had been considered a primary source of fentanyl until 2019, when it imposed stricter export control of fentanyl-related substances upon a request from the U.S. China's air quality worsened this year for the first time in a decade. Washington Post. Air pollution in major Chinese cities has rebounded this year after a surge in coal burning and industrial activity, according to research from the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air in Finland. Compared to 2022, levels of PM 2.5 particles were 7.7% higher by the end of November. The rise was concentrated in areas with heavy industry and coal mines. Pollution in China's cities became a public issue after the 2008 Olympics, and the country launched a war on pollution in 2014, which was initially successful but progress has since stalled. U.S. alarmism over Taiwan and mainland China is truly alarming. SCMP opinion. The fundamental cause of the current tensions between China, Taiwan, and the U.S. is the undermining of the mutual understanding under the 1992 consensus, according to an opinion piece in the South China Morning Post. The article argues that the Democratic Progressive Party and its Washington backers are trying to undermine the long-standing agreement, leading to increased threats and counter-threats between the three sides. The piece concludes by urging the international community to recognize the importance of cross-strait peace and to avoid playing fast and loose with it. Prominent Chinese business analysts are starting to disappear from social media. CNN. Prominent Chinese analysts have reportedly been subjected to social media restrictions in a move that appears to be an attempt to limit their ability to comment on the country's stock markets and economy. At least 6 analysts are said to be unable to upload new posts or gain new followers on popular social networking platforms, according to their account pages reviewed by CNN. The affected experts, who include an advisor to the Chinese government, were known to air candid views on the state of China's economy. The restrictions coincided with a major conference hosted by President Xi Jinping, during which the Communist Party decided to strengthen economic propaganda and public opinion guidance. The country's National Security Ministry has also reportedly stepped up efforts to quash pessimistic opinions about China's economic future. Analysts have said that the lack of transparency on the Chinese economy may deter global investors further. BYD car investment affirms Hungary as China's EU bridgehead. Bloomberg. Chinese electric vehicle, EV, maker BYD has announced plans to build its first European car factory in Hungary. The plant in the southern city of Szeged will produce EVs and plug-in hybrids for the European market and create thousands of jobs. The move is part of BYD's overseas expansion as its domestic market share peaks. Hungary has received an estimated €20 billion, $22 billion, of EV-related investments in the past 5 years. Chinese brands such as BYD, SAIC Motor and NIO have been expanding in Europe to become less dependent on their home market. The Chinese dream has turned into a nightmare. The Sydney Morning Herald. China's crackdown on the property market is causing major disruptions, leading to a wave of defaults and unfinished projects. The government's aim is to end speculation and create a more resilient housing market, but the campaign has shattered confidence and left people feeling poorer. Many in China aspire to own a home, and before the crisis, around 70% of household wealth was tied up in real estate, making price drops particularly painful. The crisis has also undermined the government's goal of getting consumers to spend and invest in new businesses. However, officials have reached their tolerance for pain in the property sector and are now drafting a list of 50 property companies eligible for bank support. Regulators are also considering a plan that would allow banks to offer unsecured loans to these companies for the first time. Despite these measures, sales of new homes have dropped in 24 of the past 29 months, and the property market is only about halfway through the correction it needs. After bumpy recovery, China's economy faces serious headwinds in 2024. Al Jazeera. China's economy is expected to face a slowdown in 2024 due to deep-seated structural issues and President Xi Jinping's consolidation of political control. China's recovery from the lifting of its COVID-19 restrictions was hindered by challenging economic conditions overseas, including soaring inflation and reduced consumer demand for Chinese goods. Domestically, Chinese consumers were hesitant to start spending again after 2 years of lockdowns and border closures. The country also struggled with deflation in the second half of the year, and its real estate crisis persisted as more developers neared default and home sales remained low. The economy's challenges have highlighted concerns about Xi's leadership and his concentration of power, which has blurred the lines between the Chinese state and the ruling Communist Party. Xi has reduced the influence of the Chinese premier, who traditionally set the tone for economic policy. Under Xi, economic policy has focused on stability and achieving common prosperity to reduce inequality and regional disparities. However, this concentrated decision-making has raised concerns about the lack of expertise and understanding of economic problems. Xi has also overseen a regulatory crackdown on industries and has tried to direct the country's major industries, leading to concerns among investors. China's growing involvement in the economy has also raised geopolitical risks, particularly in relation to Taiwan. Xi's challenge will be to find new drivers of economic growth, as the country's heavy reliance on real estate poses risks. China's efforts to reduce its reliance on property have had mixed results, with some industries making progress while others struggle. Additionally, the country faces challenges from high levels of local government debt. Moody's recently downgraded China's credit rating due to its bailout of indebted local governments, the real estate crisis, and the shrinking population. Overall, China's economy is in need of significant reform, but the tightened control of the economy under Xi makes it difficult to implement necessary changes. The Laffer curve is about to blow up the S&P. Telegraph. The Scottish Fiscal Commission has warned that the top tax rates recently announced by the Scottish National Party, SNP, government will generate only limited amounts of revenue, due to behavioral responses. The report stated that the new 48% top tax rate would generate almost no revenue at all. The use of dynamic costing in this report has been welcomed, as it evaluates the behavioral responses of taxpayers, rather than relying solely on static assumptions with no taxpayer response. The report echoes the debate surrounding the Laffer curve, which suggests that high tax rates can actually reduce tax revenues due to reduced effort from taxpayers, as well as increased tax evasion. The article argues that the UK should also consider these supply-side effects when evaluating tax policy. High marginal tax rates can reduce capital investment and productivity growth, which in turn can stifle economic growth. The article calls for the UK government to reduce high marginal tax rates in order to stimulate growth and restore the economy's health and dynamism. Tencent sheds $54 billion as China unveils latest gaming curbs. Yahoo! China has unveiled draft rules to curb spending in content in online games, wiping $54 billion off Tencent's value. The rules include a ban on rewards for frequent logins, forced player duels, and a vague prohibition on any content deemed a violation of state secrets. Games companies will need to overhaul models, including how they charge money from different tiers of players, said Zheng Xiaofeng, a vice president at Nico Partners. U.S.-China top military officials hold first talks in more than a year. Al Jazeera. The top military officer from the United States, General Charles Q. Brown, has held a virtual meeting with General Liu Zhenli of China's People's Liberation Army. This is the first conversation of its kind in over a year, as Beijing halted high-level talks after then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan in August 2022. The two countries' leaders agreed to resume such discussions when they met last month. During the meeting, the two generals touched on global and regional security issues, and Brown emphasized the importance of open and direct lines of communication to avoid misunderstandings. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your trusty observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to bring you the latest news and insights from around the globe. Let's dive right in. First up, China and the US have resumed narcotics control talks, with China cracking down on fentanyl production. It's great to see these two countries working together to combat the illegal drug trade. Plus, China's efforts to improve air quality took a hit this year, but hey, at least they were successful for a whole decade. We'll have to keep an eye on that situation. Moving on to the tensions between China, Taiwan, and the US. The root cause seems to be a breakdown in mutual understanding. It's like a big game of telephone gone wrong. We need to recognize the importance of peace in the region and avoid playing fast and loose with it. Let's all just take a deep breath and find a way to get along, shall we? Now, it seems that Chinese business analysts are disappearing from social media. Maybe they're just taking a break from all those hot takes on the stock market. Or maybe there's something fishy going on. Either way, it's a good reminder that transparency is key, especially when it comes to the economy. In other news, Chinese EV maker BYD is expanding its reach into Europe, building a car factory in Hungary. Looks like they're trying to be less dependent on their home market. Smart move, BYD. And speaking of the Chinese dream, it seems to have turned into a bit of a nightmare with the crackdown on the property market. People are feeling poorer, and that's never a good thing. Let's hope the government can find a way to stabilize the situation. Looking ahead, China's economy is expected to face some serious headwinds in 2024. There are structural issues that need to be addressed, and President Xi Jinping's concentration of power is raising concerns. It's like he's trying to do it all himself, but hey, even superheroes need a little help sometimes. China needs to find new drivers of economic growth and implement necessary reforms. It won't be easy, but it's definitely possible. And finally, the Scottish National Party's top tax rates are causing quite the stir. Turns out, high tax rates can actually reduce tax revenues. Who knew? Maybe it's time for a little tax reform to stimulate growth. Just a thought. Well, folks, that's all the news for today. I hope you've enjoyed my quirky take on things. Now, it's your turn. What are your thoughts on these news stories? Let's get the discussion going. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.